Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, welcome back to another community watch party for the Pantheon developer stream. And also, Happy New Year, by the way. First stream of the new year. Really excited. As I had a amazing holiday, and I hope you all did too. I personally spent a ton of time with family and friends, and I just found it really relaxing and also rejuvenating at the same time. So totally ready to jump right back into the Pantheon grind and starting with today. Although actually, over the past couple weeks, I was talking about this on my social media just yesterday, actually, that over the past couple weeks, while we've been kind of waiting for the developers to pop their heads back up, I've been working on some of my own stuff, kind of behind the scenes, just preparing and planning for the year ahead, like so many of us do. We got some really cool, really exciting changes lined up for my channel this year, and of course, looking forward to see what happens to Pantheon this year as well. And so that kind of brings us to today. I do have a couple of my own YouTube videos that are in the works right now as well that will be coming down the pipeline much sooner. But just wanted to put that on your radar. But for today, we got a development update stream from the developers. I have no idea what it's going to be about. They said that they're just going to be discussing progress and taking questions. Although they said it's only going to be about 20 to 30 minutes, just so you guys know what to expect as far as time goes, which is a little shorter than what they usually do, but we'll see what they're able to pack in that time. So what else? Because there's only I don't know what we're gonna get tonight, but there's only one way to find out, and it should be starting up in about 5 minutes here. So let me tell you about a little bit about what I've personally got going on behind the scenes. Because like I said, I talked about this on social media, but if you missed that, one of the things, aside from the typical like YouTube videos, which are going to be more or less the same as what you guys have seen in the past as far as content goes, because it seems to, because the content of what I've been focusing on up until now, it seems to be working. You know, people seem to appreciate it, and so I don't want to mess with that too much. But I think the way that the content and the information is communicated and presented, there's always room for improvement for that sort of thing. So there's going to be a lot of new like graphics and animations and just stuff like that on all directions to just kind of up the production value of things. And I can tell you some of the stuff that we've already got in the works right now is just, to me, it's really exciting. So I hope you guys like it too. So BazgrimTV is going to be looking and feeling just a little bit different, just a little bit more, I think refined would be a good way to put it. Like I said, by the end of this year. So I'm always just the process of just creating things and continually improving them. That alone, just the process. I don't even really care about the destination. I don't really think about, you know, an end goal a whole lot. It's really the process. I mean, I have goals, but it's really just the process of like digging in and just creating things. That's fun for me. I hope it just happens to be that you guys all like it as well, which is really convenient. But just that process, it's like, so when I had the opportunity, just like for a couple solid weeks, just like, you know what, I'm not gonna focus on making videos, just gonna like I said, kind of go behind the curtain and just work on building these new things just for myself for now, and then we'll unveil it later. So that's where I'm at right now. But I'm super pumped. I'm always being the beginning of a new year like this is always so exciting. I mean, I'm definitely also a proponent that I feel like you can make change anytime. It's not like there's nothing magical about January that makes it better, a better time to make changes. But at the same time, it's just an exciting time. So we'll be starting up here in just a couple minutes, and we're just gonna hang out. If you guys have been to these watch parties before, I'm not a developer. We're all just fans here. We're all just hanging out because someday I don't know if it's gonna be today. I don't know when it's gonna be, but I know that someday the devs are gonna make a huge announcement on stream, and I want to be there with you when that happens so that we can all react to that together. So that's really why we're here. We're just waiting for that moment. Because that's gonna be a good moment. So in the meantime, we're just hanging out. Hopefully they're gonna be getting started soon. I know they started up their stream like almost a half an hour ago, actually, to get their pre-stream going. And like I got the notification on my phone. I'm like, crap, like did I like, because but by the time the notification was on my phone, it had already been, I didn't catch it till like 10-15 minutes later or something. And I was like, did I miss it? Did they start without me? But they just had like a really long pre-stream, but then the stream went down. So let me refresh here, see if it's back up. Oh, okay, we're gonna be good. Should just be starting in just a minute here. I don't know what that was all about, but it's okay. So until then, I'll just say hi to some people in chat. See Kelem, Twisted Pixels, Optics 813, Gristle TV, Don Lozon. Some familiar faces, some new faces. That's all really cool. Thank you guys for being here with me. And with that, we're gonna pop right over to their stream. Noise. Oh, that's the wrong date.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the January 16th, 2020 Pantheon Rise of the Fallen development stream.
Is audio good, guys?
I am your commander of corpse runs, David Schlau, aka Aronic, and with me tonight we have the protector of everything that is good.
They've got a little bit of a new overlay there. That looks pretty
guys.
Cool.
And also the Grand Wizard himself, the Mastro, Mr. Chris Perkins. You're muted.
Who is very silent. Chris, we can't hear you.
What is a Mastro, David?
There we go.
The Mastro, the composer of all, the Grand Pumbaa, if you will.
Okay. So I'd like to point out, and I've already been called out. Sorry, guys, I did have the wrong date on that title screen. That was totally my bad. I looked like an idiot, but hey, I will take ownership of that. It's not November 26th. It is January 16th, 2020. Apologies. So today, before we get started, I kind of wanted to talk to you guys about the format of tonight's show. We're going to keep this kind of open forum. What we'd like to do from here on out is give you development updates as to what we've been up to for the past couple of weeks. So we're doing that tonight. We'll sort of give you a very brief look into the stuff that the team has been working on, but we're also going to keep the channel open. So we want to have like a conversation as well. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to just type them in. We've got lots of VR folks in the channel. Just kind of want to have like a conversation with you guys and keep things rolling. If that sounds good to everybody. So tonight we're going to start off. These past couple of weeks we've had a few updates. One of the things that Jared's been working on is the Codex. So let's take a quick look at the Codex, and then we'll have Chris Perkins talk a little bit about it. So I've got the Codex up here. This is what he's been working on. Now, Chris, you want to sort of go over what we've been, what we're looking at here?
That looks really clean,
Oh, for
actually.
sure. So, I mean, right off the bat, I think the first thing to say is, what's the big deal about spellbook? I mean, I think we all are pretty familiar with spellbooks in games, but we've always kind of talked about the Living Codex as if it's something a little different and a little special, and it is. So what you'll notice first is just an overhaul of the aesthetic. You've probably seen a lot of that lately with everything from the quest and perception windows to the updated nameplates and class resource windows. We're not showing it tonight, but we have our chat windows updated and the combat window updated. I'm actually having a meeting with one of our programmers, Todd Curtis, tomorrow about the hotbar, and not the functionality of the hotbar just yet, but starting to get the new aesthetic for the hotbar. So we're doing a lot of UI updates now here, the spellbook as well. But beyond just the aesthetic redesign, the other thing to hit on here is some of the special functionality of the codex, and one of those things you can probably already see is that under each of the abilities we have a series of 3 kind of indentions where those you can see a few that have none, some that are full, and then some that only have a few. And this is kind of a visual just kind of sneak peek at the some of the codex's ability modification functionality. We're going to be talking about that more soon, but essentially you're going to have some measure of control over how you develop your abilities, what kind of different little modifications and evolutions you're able to kind of open up for each of the abilities. And it's going to provide just a really significant amount of depth to class play, and it's a really interesting system, and I'm excited to share more about it. So feel free to make guesses on how it's going to work, but I think once we're able to really unfold it, it's something you guys are going to be really excited about. But yeah, we just wanted to show that as a piece of what we've been working on recently. And yes, ability name. It's an OP. I saw that comment in there. Ability name is OP. Please nerf. That's hilarious.
Guys, if you want to ask some questions in the chat, tag me and I will make sure that gets to the team here.
So that's one of the major things that we've been working on the past couple of weeks. But what's the rest of the team been up to? So as you know, with Project Faerthale, we're building content. You saw just a very small glimpse of Oldwood in our last teaser trailer, but the team is now moving on to a different area of Faerthale called the Merc. Chris, you want to tell us a bit about the Merc?
I think you cut out there. Can you say it again? The what?
The Merc.
The Merc.
The Merc.
Yeah, cool. So as we are, looking more and more at pre-alpha 5, and as we're continuing to work more and more on Project Faerthale, obviously feeding into pre-alpha 5, we're continuing to work on several different areas of the game that are going to be included in that testing content. And so what you've seen so far is a little slice of Oldwood and that kind of picturesque footage with the falling leaves and the beautiful kind of fantasy forest environment. And then we've seen the Isle of the Infinite Storm, just a little snippet of that. And now we're moving into another area called the Merc, which our game designer Tim Wathen has been kind of spearheading and designing the layout and just kind of the overall feel of that area, and working really closely with Jimmy, our resident environment artist, world builder extraordinaire, Jimmy Lane, who is just fabulous. And so they're doing a lot of work on that area, getting it ready to go. And it's given us a really good opportunity to when you look and consider the map that we've released, that most of you hopefully have seen at this point, having on the East Coast Thrown Fast, Avenger's Pass, you've got Silent Plains, Faerthale, that kind of band. It's been really fun and really good lately to
He's like
kind
reaching
double
over
back
the
and double
barrier.
down on our level ranges and kind of the level ranges of the content. And so there's actually a whole lot to consider with that, because it's when you start working on a new zone or a new area, it's this blank canvas of potential content and ideas, all of the points of interest, the who, what, where, when, why, and all this stuff. And you have to be very disciplined at how far you allow yourself to go in terms of how much content and how much are you going to fill that area with. Because what can happen is, if your level bands, if your level spread is too wide and too connected, then you're going to end up with players being able to level from level 1 to max without ever leaving the zone, or only ever having to go maybe to the adjacent zone to fill in those gaps. And so we've been doing a lot of thinking with as large as these areas are in Pantheon, and as we're starting to put more and more of this first continent of King's Reach together, we're just taking special care right now to make sure that the level spread and kind of how we've laid everything out is holding true, because we want players to move around. We want players to experience more of the world. And some of that is going to be itemization push, where you're pushed to this area or pushed to that area because you're wanting to get that particular piece of gear. Some of it's going to be, I guess you call like out of room push. You want to go somewhere and do a dungeon here, but there's no room. Like the camps are taken. So, I mean, I know for me personally, I've seen much more of a game world because there just wasn't room where I wanted to go initially. And so I'm having to think, well, where could I go? And you end up, experiencing more that way. And so we're, it's a really fun time right now, just kind of getting, geared up for things like pre-alpha 5 and, thinking about what we want players to be testing there, and then just starting to take a higher and higher level look at the game world as it's taking shape. And that's been really fun too. So just a little snippet of some more behind the scenes stuff we've been taking a look at recently.
This, Ronak, I know that you're gathering questions too, but this one just sort of jumped out at me right now. Official Clanton's asking, saying that he loves the progress that Pantheon has made. Oh, thanks. But with that in mind, how hard is combat worked on? And I think some of these comments are fair. If it still feels slightly stale, what are your philosophies and commitment in this area? I'm glad that you brought that up, because it's something that we discuss a lot internally. Let's touch on that just very briefly, Chris.
Why is combat going to be good?
Yeah, like what's our philosophies and commitment to making combat engaging? I think is another way to reword that.
Yeah, well, it's a multi-layered. I mean, it's just really a fascinating process working on something like combat, because the first thing you have to consider is it's an orchestra of different ingredients. You've got everything from the actual data layer of what's happening. I heal someone and it restores X amount of life, or I deal a damage to something and it takes away X amount of health. You have that data layer, that's your abilities, your skills are doing data wise what they say they're going to do, and they're doing it responsively. But then you've got the animation layer, then you've got the visual effect layer, particle systems, then you've got the sound effect layer, and all of those things, depending on how well in concert they're working, that alone is going to contribute dramatically to the feel of combat. Does it feel responsive? Does it feel good to connect with something with my weapon, or to see my fireball impact this target? And the degree to which those things are working together in harmony, the better it's going to be. We've got a lot of improvement to do there. So it's one thing to say that's kind of the philosophy and the way that works. It's another thing to say we're not there yet. And some of that is tooling. We're constantly evaluating our tools and the tool with which we are able to orchestrate data, ability, combat, data, animation, audio, and particle system visual effect is going to be seeing a bit of a revamp soon, which I'm really excited about. And it's going to be much more similar to something like video editing software, where if you've ever used that, you know, you've got tracks and you can see the video footage and you can see the audio, and you see it more kind of in a way where you can really fine tune like exactly where you want something to happen. It's going to give us a much greater amount of control over our individual abilities, and therefore it's going to tighten up all of combat quite a bit. Animations is another big one, just continuing to improve our animations. Ross Armstrong, our lead animator, has been working really hard and doing a lot of good work. Even these past couple weeks, continuing to bring home some of the warrior animations. Even just some of the feedback we've gotten over the holiday streams has been really helpful, just to see how, you know, certain improvements in animation and progress in animations are resonating or not resonating. And we're always listening and watching, and so you'll continue to see improvements there as well.
It's really
I feel like
crazy.
I'm in the weeds.
It's really crazy when you speak about that, about how every element ties into it. It's so true. Just playing around with some of the tools and commands that we have in game, even just such small things such as speeding up the auto attack, it has just such a dynamic effect, or such a profound effect on the feel of combat. So when you connect all of those things, like the animations, the velocity of the animations, the sound effects, the response to how not only your character is swinging, but how something's blocked or dodged or avoided, or if you miss, just all of that stuff just makes up how combat feels. It's so much more than just clicking buttons, selecting a target, clicking a button. It's putting all of those elements together. So that is something very much that we are keenly aware of, and trying different things to get it up there.
I'm gonna get a question here.
Do it.
Neffel VG wants to know: Oldwood, the Merc, etc., all part of a single Faerthale zone, or will some areas
That's a good question.
be broken out into subzones?
I like that question.
Well, yeah, I mean, the simple answer is the Merc is a subzone of Faerthale. So yes, it will be broken out into subzones. And we'll see that in certain areas. For example, Halnir Cave in Avendir's Pass is in Avendir's Pass, but it's an actual dedicated subzone of that zone.
Meaning loading zones as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. You'd actually zone into the Merc. You'd actually zone
really?
into... It's not so much that Faerthale is kind of like cut down the middle, and you're zoning from like eastern Faerthale to western Faerthale. It's more like these these unique areas inside of the zone that have kind of a standalone feel to them. So Faerthale City, the Merc, these are places from within Faerthale that you would zone into, and have become, in that sense, their own dedicated zones, even though they're smaller than the full true adventure zone. But yeah, you will see subzoning like that within zones for sure.
Okay.
So it's really just more, well, that would explain why they have described it as like a region or an area of the world rather than just one zone. So I think I was right about that one.
But one or two group members do not. Will that just mean that the group can't go there yet, or will there be ways for climbers to help the others up?
Well, there will be ways for climbers to help the others up. You know that because of abilities like Length of Rope for the rogue. And rogues will be able to put that to good use too, because rogues will have some innate bonuses to their climbing skill and ability that we haven't discussed yet, because we don't want to tell you guys everything, and want you to be excited to discover things when you log in still. But so I'll leave it at that. But so yeah, there's meant to be those situations, same way a summoner being able to summon a raft, or a druid being able to form a bridge over a certain distance. Those are all things that are meant to allow players to assist other players in traversal and create some of those horizontal content opportunities. But to the point of the question, it will vary to a degree in that, certain areas, yes, you'll be able to help other members of the group that aren't high enough skill to get up. But that's also dependent on those classes being available. And so we're certainly designing things with, we're very much okay with there not always being a means, for players to do everything that the other members in their group are able to do. And then, but it's also worth saying that it's not always going to be climbing to get to the next part of the adventure area or, to the next camp spot. Sometimes climbing is okay just to be a single person activity, in the sense that you may just be trying to reach a lever or a button or, open a chest, or maybe there's a specific NPC that you can talk to trigger an event or something like that. So it's not always going to be necessary for every single person to be able to make it up to that ledge.
I just love that system in general. That system's awesome. I'm just going to throw that out there.
The climbing system?
Yeah. It's just it feels so fun too. Like when you're actually in there playing it, it's one thing to watch it on the stream, but when you're actually in there playing it, controlling it, it just has that kind of connection where you feel it when you're climbing up over the ledge. Like, I don't know, it's very hard to explain, but you feel it while you're playing. It's cool. I love it.
Well, I'm gonna tack on to that question then. Hekanox89 wanted to know what will happen if pets summons charm monsters when we climb. Will they automatically be teleported to the other end?
That's a good question too.
That's a good question.
What happens when pets summon what?
When you're climbing and you have a summoned pet or a charmed monster, will they port or will they climb with you? What's going to happen?
So we don't want climbing in any way to be exploitable. I mean, that's easy to say, but it's really a matter of just systematically squashing the edge cases and squashing the things that pop up as exploitable mechanics or behavior. And so there's a lot of things that are going to be somewhat special case when it comes to being in a climbing state. We don't want climbing to be a get out of jail free card. I'm overwhelmed, so I just hop on a wall and hang there and I'm good. So in the same way, in terms of like how pets operate, how charmed NPCs operate, most likely, I could see we haven't actually established that, implemented that in the game yet, and so this is just more kind of some of the governing thoughts when we get there. We either set it up to where pets, things like that, can climb. The problem with that is anytime you make a decision like that, you're introducing a lot of animation work, because pets maybe not as big of an issue, but when you factor in charm and how many different things are charmable, then you have to create climbing animations for all those different types of entities. And so that,
how does a wolf climb a ledge?
The wolf, yeah. A wolf, an elephant. Like there's just situations where it gets a little ridiculous. So
confirmed, elephants are in game. No, that is not a confirmation. Let me
yeah. Did I say elephant? So what we'll probably end up doing is something more like you get on a wall with a pet. That pet's going to just hang out at the bottom and either kind of pop up to you once you get to the top, or it's just going to hang out on the bottom and fight till it's dead. But even that, as soon as you put out a solution, then it's like your mind's just like, okay, well, is that exploitable? Like if your pet's powerful enough to solo the stuff that it's fighting, then you just get on the wall and stay at safety, while your pet handles things. So it's just a process of continuing to think through the edge cases. We're going to rely heavily on testing for things like this to make sure our solutions are actually solving things. But it is something we plan to address.
I dare say, I probably I would say with 95% certainty that you guys are going to figure out things that we didn't think of. And I'm looking forward to that. It's just kind of that emergent gameplay. It happens. And maybe sometimes we'll have to patch something out. But the cool thing is that we have a system that we're all figuring out together. It's going to be something new that hasn't been done before in an MMO. and there's going to be some catches with it. Hopefully we catch most of it during testing and during design. But
the problem with not being able to climb while in combat is what happens if you enter combat while climbing. And you could say, well, you just become unable to enter combat or whatever. But then it's like, okay, then you're back to the situation of I just run and get on a climbing surface and I'm good. Combat ends. Or, you know, you could say, well, you just couldn't get on the wall while you're in combat. But again, what happens if you're on the wall and something aggroes you? And so, but I also think it's more compelling to have to deal with the fact that mobs, what I would like to see is mobs changing their combat behavior when you're climbing. And so, you know, one of the things, because we've incorporated climbing so significantly in Pantheon, it affects the way we think globally about NPCs. And so most NPCs will have an arsenal of abilities that they can switch to when they when their target enters a climbing state. So whether that be, you know, spiders, snakes spitting venom, or, you know, spitting you know, things that like webbing that causes damage, or, you know, being able to shoot a bow, obviously, throw rocks, things like that. Those are all options. And it also factors into how the climbing system is going to evolve as well, because you know, you've seen the climbing system in action in terms of actually climbing walls, grabbing ledges, you know, the movement side of climbing, but the RPG side of climbing is still in progress, and that's actually tying it to the skill, and the skill governing how fast you climb, skill governing how much endurance you consume while climbing, the skill governing the types of surfaces you can climb, but then also things like being able to lunge while you're climbing so you can avoid, you know, certain environmental hazards that could affect you on the wall, and making it more difficult to knock you off when taking damage. It would be another RPG element to the climbing system and the skill. And so the higher climbing skill you have, the more difficult it'll be to knock you off. Which when you're really high up, that's
the idea of getting knocked off is
Flat.
really fascinating to me.
That's gonna be me. Okay, so the almighty Sarlacc wants to know, I'm gonna edit this question a little bit, but will there be a KOS system in the individual race cities, or deity KOS system as well?
We'll take this question, but just in the interest of saving time, we do have a couple more things to touch on tonight as to what we've been working on. So let's take this one and move on to the next one, or the next portion, I should say.
We can hold off on that question if you want.
No, it's fine.
I don't even remember it. It's been
Chris has had a long week.
What was the question again? Let's go ahead and hit it, and then we'll switch gears.
He wanted to know about KOS systems in the individual race cities, or deity KOS systems.
Meaning, if I am affiliated with this deity, then I go to this city with people who are affiliated with that deity, they're going to attack me?
I think so.
Yeah. So this is a little bit of a can of worms, just because there is so much lore and important context to justify why I would say something like it's not really going to involve the deities or the pantheons as much as it's going to involve the faction and the faction matrix. And so while that will definitely be, you know, part of the experience, and that where I go, I'm going to be treated and responded to based on, you know, if they like me or not, and my actions and the culmination of what I've done is going to determine whether they like me or not. Or it may just be because I'm Dark Myrrh and you know, this particular race really doesn't like me. But that being said, and then of course, you know, everything that comes with that in terms of like increasing faction, decreasing faction, like ways you can leverage faction to kind of create your own situation at any given time. I want to increase my faction with these people, or I do so just automatically because I'm over here, you know, camping this stuff and it's ruining my faction with them, but it's actually increasing my faction over here. Or my personal favorite, when you do something and you you get a faction hit for something that you have absolutely no idea what it is, and it becomes kind of this. I remember one memory I have from EverQuest is like some of that weird like Ali Au or Ali Zayu Lizard Man faction stuff, where it was just intriguing to me that here I am like affecting my imprint within this world with things that I don't even really know what they are yet, nor did I know that Ali Teu spelled backwards is we Zilla, and Ali Velu backwards is we love Zilla. Anyway, it's fascinating to me, that idea of the faction matrix, that you can just do so much with creating a believable world that feels lived in, and it's exciting to me. But Pantheons will play a significant role in Pantheon. We actually have some exciting things to share about that at some point soon. So I know that's been a question that comes up a lot too, and hopefully we'll be able to speak more about that.
Oh yeah, like how, like character creation
I
and
can't
that sort of thing.
But no beans on that today.
No.
All right, so
no beans, Bendine.
One of the other kind of cool things I just wanted to touch on briefly is when we're doing something like Project Faerthale, a lot of it is very content heavy. That's really kind of what makes the core of an MMO. You have combat and content. So in order to facilitate that, you need a way to put content in the game. So one of the things that our engineering team has been working with our design team is working on new tools to facilitate that to get content in game. So we have been updating our tools. That's been a very big focus this year, actually even before this year too, but a lot of focus has been working on that for this year and getting it all up to snuff so that we can keep on moving forward in 2020. So I think I just said the whole bit there. I would have turned it over to you, Chris, but unless you had anything else to add to it.
No, that's great. It's good.
Yeah.
You want to take some more questions?
Yeah. What else do we have? If you have any specific, I don't like. Obviously, we don't mind doing the kind of general questions too, but specifically, if we can address anything on climbing or on the Merc.
I think we're gonna make it over that half an hour mark.
Content tools, or on the Codex that we showed earlier today.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate what you kind of said.
I don't want to jinx it, but you can always trust these guys to just
this particular
talk about Pantheon way longer than they think they will.
Chatting about what we've been up to, but obviously other streams will be more meatier with some more visuals. So there's going to be a lot of these streams are kind of going to differentiate from week to week.
We're not going to have a new trailer every 2 weeks, but what we will have is 2 or 3 of us every week on here taking questions, telling you what we've been up to.
So Pantheon Tharek wants to know, what is the level range for the Merc? Can we talk about that at all?
That's a good question.
It was a good question.
It's going to be on the higher end for sure. I think just trying to.
It's on the higher end. You could just leave it at that.
It's on the higher end.
Can we talk a little bit about some of the things that we'll expect to see in the Merc as far as creatures or environments or anything like that? No.
Yeah, I wish.
Thank you for asking.
I wish Tim Wathem were here, because it really
it's his field.
Yeah, it's so much his. The Merc is really the fruit of his labor, and Justin Gerhardt, our writer too. It's definitely. We talk a lot about the environment being something that you have to contend with, and the Merc, even its name, it gives you a good sense of kind of the aesthetic and the environment that we're dealing with here, and so expect a lot of interesting environmental aspects.
What I can tell you about my personal experience with it, I remember that call that we had when Jimmy first revealed it. He did a screen share as to what he's been working on. and I was blown away, because to me this was a new area where things were starting to feel really adventurous. Like, it just made me want to crawl in there and explore every nook and cranny. Like, there were like caves and stuff that you could climb on, and it was just really cool. I'm like, I want to get in there right now. So I don't know. I'm pretty excited about when we can show that off a bit more. But to me, it was a very exciting moment.
Yeah, I think my favorite part of being part of the team is watching, the idea start up as a concept or just a bunch of words, and then seeing it evolve through different stages to the point where Jimmy's like designing it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me see if I get anything else.
Renarius Spirit Arrow is asking how large is the typical zone. This is that's a perfectly pertinent question, because we were discussing that earlier this week too. Chris, you can probably address it a little bit more succinctly, but
yeah, there's so many different ways to answer that question.
Yeah.
How large is the zone based, like how long does it take you to run from one end to the other? How large is the zone in the sense of how many, full groups can it support at the same time? Or even in terms of level spread, how wide is the band? Is it something like the Fearot, where you've got, Froglock Tads all the way up to, the gate into Fear Plane, or is it, something really tight? To give you an example, the Merc is a subzone of Faerthale. In many ways, it is kind of like a self-contained overland dungeon type environment. Something like the Merc, we're shooting for being able to support 12 full groups at once in its entirety, when you consider the entirety of the area. And but that's again, that's a small dedicated subzone. And when you think about full groups and the amount of kind of the radius around a full group with which they're able to pull, and
that's pretty big. If that's a 12, small zone, that's 72
and we
people.
say 12 full groups, that doesn't account for some pockets of like trios and duos, and who knows? I mean, the intrepid solo player who's figures out how to get in there and do some things. So that's an example of a relatively small dedicated zone. Then you talk about something like Faerthale, which is just absolutely enormous in comparison. And so it's a hard question to answer, but
it is.
I don't think you'll be disappointed.
And particularly when you start thinking about the density of content too, big open zones with nothing in them is, what's that worth? Or smaller zones with tons in it. Yeah.
I think there's something to be said too, though, about not big open zones with nothing in them, but there is that kind of almost like breathing. Like you got the inhalation of like, and then you've got the exhale of like this rhythm of a lot of density, and then places that are more open. And and in those are the places, actually the really open places that you can kind of find some pretty cool stuff in there that you don't expect,
Okay, Boz wants to know something about the Codex. Will there be more than just 3 possible ways to upgrade a spell, or will there ever be 3 options for upgrading a spell? I don't know about the second part of that question, but I think he's asking about if the 3 is kind of set in stone, or if there'll be other ways to upgrade spells.
This is one of the elements of upgrading that the Living Codex uses. It is one means of that upgrade path. It may end up being the only means. It just, as we try some things out, but we had originally planned on a couple of different avenues for updating abilities or modifying and evolving abilities. This is one of them. Now, whether it will stay at 3 or be 4 or 5, total modifications that you can unlock for that ability, whether every ability is always 3. Maybe there's some that are 3 and some that are more. Epic abilities, you could have standard abilities, normal abilities that are maybe 3, and then epic abilities could have, several more modifications that you can unlock. That's something that we'll see as we get further along.
Great.
All right, we'll probably have time for 1 or 2 more.
Okay. This is kind of a more class-related question, but it's interesting. Kazuke wants to know, since we just got done with the Warrior Spotlight streams, do you intend to have the other tanks be as interactive as the Warrior, or is the Warrior meant to be more interactive than the other two?
Interactive is an interesting word. When you say interactive, it makes me think like interactive in the sense of like affecting the group, being more of a group oriented tank, where the warrior has the banners and the formations and shouts and the things that kind of affect the group, versus something like a dire lord who's a relatively selfish tank. So there's that sense, but if you're meaning like involved as in like repertoire in the arsenal, it's not necessarily intended that the warrior would be more or less interactive than the other ones, but just that their means with which they do what they do is fundamentally different. So I could see, I could see, I could see a situation where someone would say, like, between a warrior and a dire lord, maybe like the dire lord is maybe comes off feeling a little less interactive in the sense of they are so selfish in their focus and dealing damage and self-healing, but even dire lords have their moments and settings where all of their kit will have to be brought to bear, and the skill ceiling needs to be high for all of them, ideally.
Okay, well, thanks, guys, and thanks everybody for coming out. So our next stream, when are we doing the next one, Ronak? That's at the 30th, January 30th.
Tomorrow, right?
Yeah, tomorrow.
Just kidding. Just wanted to see if a gray hair would pop up on Ben's head there.
Oh yeah. When I started the stream, I didn't have any gray in my beard.
This particular stream, right?
It's been so long and stressful.
Yeah. Yes, the 30th will be our next stream.
30th, cool. Okay, well, thanks again, everybody, for coming. We will be here again in 2 weeks. We'll be telling you a bit more about what we've been up to for the 2 weeks that we're going into now, and we'll be able to take some more questions, have a little chat with you. Thanks for following, and just as a closing note too, if you actually want to own a piece of Pantheon, there are investment opportunities available. I don't know where I'm looking. I'm like looking for the camera. It's
got like a cue card.
There are investment opportunities available. You can find out more about those investment opportunities by emailing contact@visionaryrealms.com. Thanks a lot, everyone, and have a great night.
See you. Adios.
Okay, cool. Let me fix that. Oop. There we go. All right. So that was pretty short and sweet. Although I will say it was like twice as long as they were originally expecting it would go. So we got a little bit more out there, but I think they covered a pretty good amount of topics, which I will just kind of like add my 2 cents to here. Although before I get into that, I need to say, Kaloc Sundancer, thank you for the donation during this stream, and I had to hold in my laughter because he sent it with a note that says, "For a new casting couch." So I should probably explain. Before I moved into my new apartment and got this new studio, if you go back on my YouTube channel and go back, you can see some of the older videos before I moved. You'll see always in the background of my camera was a couch, which I guess has been dubbed the casting couch, because I saw that there were some people. There was a couple comments about it, like every once in a while. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. To me, it's actually it's a nice couch, but I don't know if the lighting or something was making it did kind of look like this like ugly kind of like mustard yellow, and it was just an eyesore apparently in the background. But so now we've got a nice cleaner background now, I guess. But anyway, thank you, man, for the donation. So I want to comment on a few things here that we saw tonight, starting with the Codex, the Living Codex. I bet I can bring it up if I just go. I'm gonna see if I can bring it up. The picture of it. Here it is. Boom. There we go. So I know I saw a few people in chat commenting that it looks kind of busy. And I get where they're coming from. There are some details that are probably unnecessary. But overall, I personally, you want my personal opinion, I think it looks great. It's actually one of the cooler looking spellbooks that I've seen. I'm just going on the artwork. I'm starting on the outside. We'll work our way in. The outline of it, I think, is one of the coolest spellbooks that I've seen. The little stuff, like it's the attention to detail that I think is important. Like you see there's little like bookmarks on the bottom and the edges and the top that have like little like runes scripted onto them, like, and the little lock and hinge on the sides and little wear on the edges of the pages, like little stuff like that. That attention to detail and the silk bookmark that's going down the middle, little things like that. Whether you're consciously aware of it or not, just really sucks you further into the world. It's that immersion buzzword that we hear a lot. It just, whoops. Oh, I suppose I should pause this. Oh, that's not gonna work. Okay, we'll just look at it like this. So if you think it's just, you got to respect the amount of time and thought that was put into designing something like this. And if you think, okay, this is the amount of attention to detail that they have on the UI of the spell book, you know, then they're going to be paying that much attention to detail in other areas of the game, logically anyway. And I think that's important. That's just going to keep happening. So regardless of what you think about the like little details and whether it looks busy or not, it's worth mentioning though that they have mentioned in the past that players will be able to reskin their UIs, just from an aesthetic standpoint. Things that don't actually affect gameplay. One of the philosophies that they've talked about in the past is that things like this, like, ultimately, the way your spell book appears to you personally does not matter. It doesn't. If you go ahead, if you change this and you want to make it look like a freaking Time magazine, go for it. Nobody's gonna know. But so this as a default, I think is great. But if you don't like it, you can reskin it because it doesn't actually have an impact on gameplay. And so what I was getting at though is the philosophy for those things that, particularly in UI and just how it appears to you, they want to put as much of the control of that into the player's hands as possible. That way you can customize it however you're comfortable with. They're not gonna just lock you into one particular way, not like freaking 1999 EQ UI where everything is just locked in. You can't move anything, you can't resize anything, you can't adjust the transparency of anything. From what they've been saying, you'll have near complete control over the UI as far as how it appears to you aesthetically. So whatever your preference, doesn't matter. And I had some experience with that in prior games, like in DDO when I played. Like you could go to like a website and there'd be these community made UIs basically that you could like download and plug in, and it would just reskin your whole UI. 'Cause personally, like I do like fairly minimalist UIs. That way I can see, as long as I can see, I just want to be able to see as much of the action as possible, the gameplay. I don't want especially the windows, like the chat windows and stuff that are going to be up all the time. I don't want that to be blocking anything important potentially. So reskinning, even as much as I like the spellbook, yes, maybe it could be a little smaller around the edges or whatever. I think it's a good start, but I'm really curious to see the type of skins though that the community comes up with, because maybe somebody will just make something better. The moving in, we look at all the ability name. Again, they didn't really give us much detail on what this all means, other than that it's a way to kind of customize and upgrade your abilities. I know if you go way back to like the first stream they ever did, they actually had a very, very rough concept of this. This looks a million times better. So I know a little bit about how it used to work, but again, that was like 2016. I'm sure a lot has changed about it since then. It seems like if we were talking about what the overall objective of the system is, though, like you kind of hinted at, it's a way to kind of add some depth to your character. And so one of the bits of I guess feedback or concerns that I see about Pantheon every once in a while is that it's this the idea that, okay, if there are only 12 classes available and there's no multi-classing, not even any skill trees, not the traditional skill trees that you're used to in a lot of games, then what is going to prevent your character, if you have a level 40 warrior, how is your level 40 warrior going to be different from every other level 40 warrior on the server? Now, the obvious answer is gear, although that's not a super exciting answer because that's nothing revolutionary. It does definitely play a part in how you choose to gear your character specifically that will help you to stand out. But really it comes down to the abilities. And so at first glance, I can see where people may think, okay, well, you have 12, each class has the same access to all the same abilities. And so, yes, the way that you use those abilities will help you to stand out. That is true. But again, it might not be obvious at like first glance, like, wow, the way that person has built their character is really unique. So there's a few things that we seem to start to be getting into here that show how you can kind of, again, just customize your character. One thing that has been mentioned before for sure is the idea that not all abilities will just automatically appear on your ability bar when you level up. Maybe some of them will, but there will also be a good amount that you have to go seek out yourself, whether that be buying them, that would be an easy way, or to maybe loot. Maybe there are some that you can only get from like looting off of a particular mob or a particular type of mob, or maybe we know that there are epic abilities that can only be achieved as rewards for epic type quests, and so with that you can start to see where, like, okay, if somebody has gone out and gone through the effort of getting an epic ability, and that ability has maybe a really unique effect or an animation, that's one thing where you could be a level 50 wizard and have that epic ability, but then another level 50 wizard who hasn't done that epic quest, they see you use that ability, they know what that is, and they're like, wow, you've done that quest, and then that differentiates you from all the other level 50 wizards. So that's one layer. Beyond that is the Living Codex here, which again, like, it'll be interesting to see how you go about upgrading, and this seems to apply to pretty much all of your abilities, not just epic abilities. I can say that confidently anyway. So I know that the previous version, which actually you can read about on the FAQ, on the official website, go to the FAQ, do a search for Living Codex, and it will show you at least the previous iteration that they have. There's these different glyphs and stuff that you can collect, that you can like attach to your abilities, which will alter their effects. And I think something along those lines is what we're seeing with these little dots. I would be willing to bet that it's more than just a system like we've seen in some other games, where it's like you have Flame Strike rank 1, Flame Strike rank 2, Flame Strike rank 3. I don't believe that these are just ranks where it's like, okay, Flame Strike 1 does 20 damage, Flame Strike 2 does 40 damage, etc., etc. It's not just about upgrading it so that it can do more damage. It's about tweaking them in some way and to some degree, which again they'll have to reveal to us eventually. But to kind of like add effects to it, I think is kind of what they're going for. So again, you can kind of like, for whatever your particular play style, you can kind of tune your abilities to just be different. So not everybody is an exact carbon copy of each other. Mordanis says maybe more of a modification like Flame Strike now applies a dot. I think that's a great example. And I think that from what I gather from what I've seen of the system is I think it seems to be those sorts of little things. So that brings us to the comments on combat, which now I'm trying to remember what they were saying about combat. So like where he's talking about the tool that will kind of tighten up combat, for lack of a better word, because that over the past couple streams, that has been another big point of feedback that I've seen, is that particularly in the animations, it seems like people, okay, like, yeah, there's all these cool systems and stuff, but if it doesn't feel like you're making an impact on the world, it's just not as satisfying, and which is absolutely true. And it's at least good to hear them acknowledge that and say that it's something that they're working on, which they've said before, but we got that little extra detail about the the particular tool that allows them to more fine tune, because like, you know, if you want the animation to be to occur, you know, as the damage is being dealt. That's the responsiveness that he was talking about. Like, if that is off even a little bit, it's one of those things that even if you're not aware of exactly what's going on, your brain is telling you like something's not right. Like, you know, you do the attack and then the damage happens just a split second later, or you do the attack but it just kind of, maybe just the animation makes it look like you're not really, you're just swinging through air because the animation isn't told, you know, that it is going to impact at this particular point. Little details like that. I mean, to really be nitpicking that stuff in pre-alpha, I think is a little premature. Now, once it gets to beta and stuff like that, if it's still not right, then that's a bigger issue in my opinion. In pre-alpha though, it's like, it's worth mentioning, but it's not worth freaking out over. But anyway, it seems like they're already paying attention to that, which is impressive. That's all I'll say about that for now. Because I forget what else I was gonna say. So we'll move on to Faerthale. The fact that Project Faerthale, they confirmed that it is not really just one zone, which I think in one of the past community streams I mentioned that I had this theory based on the way that they were talking, that it was not just literally one zone, because they've described it as an area of the world or a region of the world. And so the idea that like, wow, they're taking so long just to make one zone. Like if it takes a year to make one zone, it's the game's not going to be done for another 20 years, blah, 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 whatever. So it sounds like there's like at least 3. I'm still trying to kind of wrap my head around it, because he says, okay, the Merc is a separate zone from like Faerthale, the home city of the elves. So you got Faerthale, which is where, you know, the elves started, and then presumably a surrounding newbie yard, kind of like Thronefast. Then he said that the Merc is a higher level zone that kind of branches off of it. You can only reach it from Faerthale, I think is what he said, but it's still a separate like zone in higher level zone. But he said that if that zone can handle 72 people comfortably, and that's a small zone compared to Faerthale, it's like you can start to get an idea of how big of a region of the world this is, which I think explains why it is taking a long time for them to do it. So that's exciting. Again, I don't know when we're gonna get the announcement that we can finally like dive into that, but I can't wait. But anyway, I think that's I think I've pretty much covered everything that I wanted to cover anyway. Things that kind of like stuck out to me from that stream. There's some good little tidbits hidden in there. So for now though, it's getting a little late where I am. So I think I'm gonna head out, guys. But again, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I'm always pleasantly surprised how many people want to just like hang out and just be with me while we all just kind of watch this together. That's what makes this community so great. So I'm going to get back to, like I said, I got a couple of YouTube videos coming up on the horizon soon. And we'll take it from there. We'll see where this year takes us. So till then, guys, thank you for hanging out. I'll see you next time, and have a good night.